All right, today we're jumping right into one of the most profound and honestly influential texts in all of Hindu literature. We're talking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, also known as the Bhagavata Purana. And believe me, this thing is a vast, vast ocean of stories, philosophy, and pure devotion.
But here's the thing. How can a single book claim to be the very essence of all the Vedanta literature? I mean, that is a huge claim, right? What's amazing is the book itself kind of throws down that gauntlet. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to unpack that very idea and see what's really going on.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the Bhagavad Gita, we first have to figure out where it sits on the shelf, in the grand library of Hindu scriptures. And that library, well, it all starts with the most ancient texts of them all, the Vedas.
And this is where things get really interesting, because you see this huge contrast. On one side, you've got the Vedas, super ancient, right? And they're all about these complex rituals, hymns, and customs. But then you have the Bhagavata, and it kind of shifts the whole focus to personal devotion, what's known as bhakti. And it does it through these incredible, captivating stories. It's really a move from, let's say, ritual to relationship.
And there's this quote from the text itself that just perfectly captures this relationship. It says, "The Bhagavad Gita is the fruit of the wish-yielding tree of the Veda." I love that imagery. So the idea isn't that it replaces the Vedas. No way. It's more like the Vedas are this huge, ancient tree of knowledge, and the Bhagavad Gita is the sweet, ripe fruit that drops from it. It's the essence, the part that's easy to enjoy without having to deal with the tough bark or the complicated roots.
Okay, so we have the context now. We know where it fits, but what exactly is the Bhagavata Purana? Let's zoom in a bit and look at the text itself.
First off, it's a Purana. It's a whole category of texts. That Sanskrit word, Purana, it literally means something like ancient or old traditional history. And you can think of the Puranas as a genre of literature that's meant to complete the Vedas, to take that high-level, sometimes abstract wisdom and make it accessible through stories and legends.
Now, structurally, the Bhagavata is pretty organized. It's broken down into 12 distinct books, which are called skandhas.
And get this, across those 12 books, you're looking at around 18,000 verses. Yeah, 18,000. It is massive, and it covers pretty much everything you can think of, from the creation of the universe to deep, deep philosophy.
But it's not just the sheer size that makes this a Mahapurana, a great Purana. See, most Puranas, the lesser ones, they're required to cover 5 main topics. But the Bhagavata, it doubles that. It covers 10. So it goes way beyond just creation stories and royal family trees. It dives into these really profound subjects like liberation, the science of God. And the whole point of all this extra detail is to foster that deep, loving devotion. So with 18,000 verses covering 10 different topics, you've got to ask, what's the one thing that holds it all together? What's the central thread? Well, it all comes down to one single concept: pure, unmotivated devotion. And that concept is bhakti. Now, bhakti isn't like doing some ritual because you want something back. It's not transactional. It's this really intense, personal, and passionate love for the divine. You do it just for the sake of the love itself. And that idea, that's the engine. It's the central driving force behind the entire text.
And who is that devotion directed towards? Well, the text makes it crystal clear in what might be one of its most important verses. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. And what this means is that Krishna isn't just one of many forms of God or an avatar. The text is declaring that he is the original, the supreme personality of Godhead. And that one statement, that's the bedrock. Everything else in the Purana is built on top of that.
But here's what's so brilliant about it. While its heart is totally devotional, its mind is incredibly philosophical. I mean, just look at this list. It doesn't just pick one school of thought and stick with it. Instead, it does this masterful job of weaving together themes from all these different, sometimes even conflicting philosophies. You've got dualism, non-dualism, qualified non-dualism, the whole shebang. And it frames all of them as just different roads leading to the same destination, that heart of devotion, bhakti.
So, okay, how on earth does this one book teach all this complex philosophy and inspire this deep devotion at the same time? The answer is simple: stories. A whole universe of interconnected stories.
And we're talking about a truly epic narrative arc here. I mean, it spans all of cosmic time. It kicks off with the creation of the entire universe.
Then it moves through the genealogies of ancient kings and sages. Then it zooms in with this incredible focus on the life of Krishna. It even makes prophecies about the age we're living in right now, the Kali Yuga. And it all wraps up by explaining the path back to the spiritual world, to liberation.
Right at the very heart of this entire epic, you'll find the 10th canto. Now, this is the big one. It's the longest, it's the most celebrated part of the entire book. Think about this. It dedicates nearly a quarter of its total length. That's almost 4,000 verses, just to telling the life story of Krishna. The detail is just incredible.
And this is where we get so many of the most famous and beloved stories in all of Hinduism. I mean, these are stories you've probably heard of. The churning of the cosmic ocean, the incredible story of the devotee Prahlada and the demon king, Krishna lifting Govardhana Hill, the famous and beautiful Rasa dance with the gopis. All of these iconic narratives, their primary source is right here in the Bhagavata.
Okay, so this is an ancient text. Why are we still talking about it? Why does it matter so much today? Well, its legacy is just immense, and it's still shaping culture in some really profound ways.
Let's just trace its journey through time for a second. It gets composed way back around the 9th century. Fast forward to the 15th century, and it becomes the absolute scriptural fuel for these huge bhakti movements that sweep across India. Then, in 1788, it makes its way to Europe with a French translation. And then, of course, in the 1960s, it really hits the global stage, becoming a cornerstone for movements you might know, like ISKCON.
And its impact just radiates out far beyond the purely religious sphere. The stories of Krishna that come from the Bhagavata, they are the thematic heart of so many of India's classical dance forms. Kathak, Odissi, you name it. They're in folk theater, in an endless stream of poetry and literature. It is a true cultural powerhouse. And I think this quote from the scholar Edwin Bryant just puts it all into perspective perfectly. He says that the Bhagavad Gita has inspired more derivative literature, poetry, drama, dance, theater, and art than any other text in the history of Sanskrit literature, with the possible exception of the Ramayana. I mean, let that sink in. That is an absolutely incredible statement about its power and influence.
So, when you put it all together, you realize the Bhagavad Purana is so much more than just an old book on a shelf. It's a living, breathing tradition. It's the text that took abstract Vedic philosophy and turned it into a deeply personal journey of devotion. And in doing so, it has inspired centuries of art, faith, and literally millions of people all over the world.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about, doesn't it? How does a collection of stories about divine play and cosmic love, written down more than 1,000 years ago, still have such a powerful, vibrant influence on our world today? From art and philosophy to personal faith, its timeless appeal is maybe the greatest proof that it truly is the ripe fruit of wisdom it claims to be.